Hello, YouTube. It's Brother Gerald, YouTube philosopher. And today's episode is to focus on the profession of school teaching and the educational system, in particular here in California, of which I've had some pretty intimate interactions. Now, education is a very honorable profession. I think many of the teachers that are in the profession are honest in their dealings in that they really try to draw that which is in the child out. Because education, the definition of the word, comes from a Latin word, educare. And educare means to draw forth, to bring forth. And so a teacher in the fullness of their expertise is only going to truly be drawing out that which is built into the child. And it was built into the child by that which created the child. And the evolutionist believes that the parents actually created the child, but where did these parents come from and who made them? And if we rewind the clock and go back to all of the subsequent generations, we see that there was the first man and the first woman. Now, chicken or the egg problem for the scientists, but that's not even the point of my discussion. The point of my discussion is being honest in your dealings, because I have a particular bone to pick with the teachers here in Los Angeles County in particular, because I have a son right now who's 21 years old, and he's managed to remain in high school for 7 years. Now, I'm not going to throw the teachers totally under the bus, because as a parent, there is a certain responsibility that I undertook as well. It gets to a point, though, when a child that is able to manipulate smartphones, that's able to listen to music videos, is able to interact socially, travel on public transportation, and negotiate so many things that it becomes more obvious to one, if they care to look, that this child has seemingly been able to manipulate and get himself in a position where he is a 7-year high school student. How does this happen? It has to happen as a result of people not doing their job and not caring. And at the very beginning of my child going to high school, he had received a report card. Now, during this time that he's going to school, I'm working a job and I'm being the main principal provider of the resources that my family needed to survive. So there was a separation, a division of labor, whereupon which I was the one who chose, and it was agreed upon by all parties that I was going to be the breadwinner. And the reason why was because I made the most bread, and I made such a substantial amount that enabled us to travel. It enabled us to have good experiences interacting with other people like Canadians, Belgians, Englishmen, and just Germans. I mean, my family has been exposed to many things in this world. But it got to a point where my wife was not able to do that which she had promised to do. And so at the end of his first semester in high school, he had received all F's in every class that he took. So I first confronted my wife. What is the meaning of this? What's going on? Why haven't you been closely monitoring this? And why haven't you kept in touch with these teachers? Because had you been monitoring his progress or lack thereof, you would have been able to stem the tide that ultimately rolled in as all F's on his report card. And she didn't have a reasonable explanation for that. So I began to go on a mission of fact finding and trying to understand what's going on. So I write a very provocative letter. And the letter as it was authored and presented, was very provocative. I mean, the teachers and the principal, they took issue. They took issue to the point where they were saying that it was a violation of their policy of being courteous. And we have a policy of, I forget what they called it, but it was a policy where we're supposed to be polite and we're not supposed to be offensive to the people who we're interacting with. And so I get a letter from the principal, and he's trying to admonish me and he's trying to chastise me. But the mistake that he made was that he pointed me to a policy, a civility policy. That's what it was, where I have to be civil in my dealings with these teachers. And I think that that's a very reasonable thing to do. And I don't think that I was uncivil, because when I received the letter of this civility policy, I took a day off from my busy schedule to go down to the school district main office and literally study as much as I could study in 8 hours, the civility policy and other policies that were enforced there. And so I wrote a letter back demanding that the principal illustrate where in my letter was I uncivil. Because if you can demonstrate to me where in this letter that was a scathing discussion of the circumstances of my son failing these classes, it was a scathing indictment to the incompetence of the teachers. And so I never got a rebuttal. I never got an explanation of clarification pointing to the elements in my letter that were uncivil. But the long and the short of it is, I requested a meeting with these teachers, and we got together, and I just asked all of the teachers before they started trying to get super defensive. I just asked them, and this might be a strategy for children's parents that are having the same problem that I'm describing here in this video. Sit down with the teachers along with the principal and ask all of them, is there any amongst you that can tell me in very clear and specific terms that my son has a learning disability? And nobody opened their mouth to say a word. Is there anybody here that chose to try to evaluate to see if this child is retarded? Nobody raised their hand again. So here it is. We have this 14-year-old child coming into this institution of education. And we have all of these adults that have been credentialed by the school district as being qualified to teach. And despite there being not one, not two, not three, but 5 quote unquote educational professionals here, and you just have not been able to mission accomplish that for which you were hired to do. So I asked the question, why is it that you guys can allow my son to sit in your classroom and you guys are not clever enough to figure out a strategy whereupon which you get this child to learn that which you say that you have the credentials and the knowledge to teach? And here we go, getting all of these excuses and justifications and all of this. And they were getting ready to throw me under the bus by saying, well, Mr. Bailey, we can only do as much as we're able to do, but you have the responsibility. This is your child. And I said, you are very much correct. This is my child. And I have entrusted my child to the care and professional expertise of all of these educational professionals here. Now, at no time did any of you guys think to contact me the minute you saw trouble. Because here it is, my son was attending your school, going to your classes, which was my responsibility, obligation, as I read in the school district policy manual. And I actually cited the chapter and verse. But here it is, my son was entitled to receive an education, whereupon which if there was any trouble that you found, that you were supposed to notify me. And if you couldn't get in touch with me, you were supposed to notify your superior that you were having trouble. Now, according to the policy, you were supposed to do this. Why was this not done? And then it got to very quiet. It got very, very quiet. But the long and the short of it was that 7 years later, my son still hasn't finished high school. But I'm learning, and I'm learning on such a level now that for everything that they failed to do for my son, I'm going to see to it that no child has to suffer at the hands of these thieves. And that's what they are. They are thieves because they stole from the government. They received money for my child attending that school. They received compensation for being on the job, but they never got around to teaching that child. And in so not teaching my child, they set that child up to not have what he needs to properly interact with society in a constructive manner. Because having no knowledge and no skills puts you in a position where you're going to have to do things that are not harmonious to earning an honest living, like stealing. So I just give this message to the teacher that really thinks that to let that one child be left behind, to ignore the child, to not contact the parent, to just do your job like the good Nazi soldier. You should not have anything to say when the child comes and starts shooting other students on campus, or when this child, while you're at work, him and his gangster friends come breaking in your house and stealing your possessions. You should not have nothing to complain about, and you should not even take the time to file a police report or to contact your insurance company to be compensated for the loss. Because you, in your humblest of professions, in the position that you chose to be in, you chose to be a teacher, and your failure as such will be a reflection on how the society moves forward, remains stagnant, or deteriorates. So with that, teacher, I commend you to redouble your efforts if you truly think that the reason why Johnny can't read is because he doesn't care. I think it would be more on your part that you don't care to try to reach him and to develop educational strategies that will draw them in for you to draw that which is in them out. So peace to you all. May God bless all the teachers to heed and do what they are hired and paid to do.